The walls in a Russian barrack are made of thin hardboard and rotted planks that let in cold and damp and amplify the feeling of being exposed to the elements. The roofs leak in the rainy season. Drops of water fall into the interiors, destroying furniture and clothes and worsening the damp problem, which deepens the sense of helplessness and abandonment. In winter, in uninsulated rooms, the temperature falls to a few degrees, forcing residents to wear clothes even at night to avoid freezing, and the lack of immediate repairs breeds more despair. Heating relies on primitive wood or coal stoves that provide warmth but also carry the risk of smoke poisoning and fire, creating a daily burden that is hard for families to bear. The windows are drafty and often covered with plastic or heavy blankets, which limits daylight and promotes condensation inside, and the medical costs caused by dampness burden the household budget. In damp walls and corners, mold and fungus develop, attacking respiratory health especially in children and the elderly, directly harming the youngest and oldest family members. Floors in many barracks collapse underfoot and require constant repairs, but lack of funds means residents ignore the danger, and official intervention often only increases the local community's frustration. Toilets are often shared and located outside, which means going out into frost or rain and a lack of basic sanitary comforts, causing hopes for improvement to shrink with each season. Sewers often do not exist. Residents use cesspools or simple pits, increasing the risk of contamination and intestinal disease, and temporarily covering holes with makeshift materials is common practice. Taps sometimes do not supply water in winter, and even when water is available, it is often contaminated and not fit to drink, so repairs are rare and usually improvised. Several people live in cramped rooms, which limits privacy and forces life in constant crowding and noise, driving residents to improvise and take risky measures. The kitchen is usually shared by the whole barrack and is the site of daily disputes and exchanges of information among residents, which often creates a tense and unfriendly atmosphere. From the corridors, mixed smells of cooking, tobacco smoke, and damp rise, creating a stifling and oppressive atmosphere that negatively affects residents' well-being. Lack of privacy means conversations and conflicts are heard through thin walls and everyone knows neighbors' intimate details without consent, which increases shame and helplessness. Daily conflicts erupt over shared spaces and limited resources, where even water becomes a contested commodity, breeding complaints and long-lasting tensions. Laundry dries on lines stretched across the corridors. Corridors are dark, lit by a single bulb, and frequent power outages leave residents in semi-darkness and reduce safety. Electrical failures occur often, and the lack of immediate repairs means prolonged periods without light and household appliances. Rodents and insects have become permanent inhabitants of the barracks, feeding on scraps and spreading germs between apartments. Because of the cold, people sleep in clothes and multiple layers as a normal way to keep even a little warmth at night, leading to chronic fatigue and health problems. Residents survive on minimal wages, pensions, and casual work that do not secure basic needs for their families, and the household budget is constantly strained. Grandmothers sell vegetables from home gardens at the market to get extra money for medicine, fuel, and essential foodstuffs. Alcohol in the form of vodka or moonshine is often cheaper than fresh produce and becomes a common alternative in moments of no money. For many, the day begins with cheap tea and a slice of bread because the economy forces frugal and monotonous culinary rituals from the morning, and there is no room for nutritious meals. In summer, residents pick berries and mushrooms in nearby forests, which raises the dietary value and provides important variety for months and sometimes the only source of vitamins. In winter, the diet is mainly limited to potatoes, sauerkraut, and preserves, leading to vitamin deficiencies and worsening health during the cold season. Meat is treated as a delicacy and appears occasionally at holidays or special celebrations when the family can afford it. Vodka can serve as a substitute meal because drinking sometimes replaces the need to prepare food, and drinking rituals have strengthened under conditions of few prospects. Alcoholism is ubiquitous and leads to brawls and domestic violence that pass through thin walls, bringing fear to children and complicating upbringing. Drunken fights break out in corridors and yards where tension accumulates from lack of prospects and frustration caused by poverty and lack of institutional support. Homemade moonshine distilled in cellars serves as an exchangeable means of payment and an extra source of income for some residents, which also carries social costs. Payday often starts several days of binge drinking, which causes short-term drops in household finances, a rise in violence, and a temporary loosening of social norms. Police responses are often slow and interventions rare, so residents do not count on effective protection from aggression and crime, which breeds a sense of impunity among offenders. Emptiness in refrigerators contrasts with bottles on the tables, where alcohol often fills the place of missing basic foodstuffs and causes family tensions. People feel forgotten by the state, which strengthens feelings of alienation and hinders local initiatives that could improve living conditions and civic awareness. Lack of prospects causes resignation and apathy among residents, limiting social mobilization and neighborly mutual aid initiatives and stalling change. Neighbors know each other's dramas but rarely help, because economic exhaustion and fear for scarce resources make selfishness a short-term survival strategy. Rumors and quarrels become daily life, and news of someone's fall spreads faster than the scarce and uncertain help, which undermines trust in the community. A few try to break out of the barrack and leave for the city, but most stay due to lack of means or family ties hard to sever, creating a long-term impasse.